When the first strange signal touched Earth's satellites, most people thought it was just another glitch. Signals came and went all the time. Sometimes it was interference, sometimes it was space dust, and sometimes it was just old hardware struggling to stay alive in orbit. But this signal was different. It had a rhythm, a pattern, a strength that didn't match anything coming from Earth. At first, only a few people even noticed it. In a small observation center outside the city, a junior technician stared at his monitor, confused by what he was seeing. He had checked the satellite feed 3 times already. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again, hoping the strange pattern would vanish. It didn't. He called for his supervisor to take a look. Soon, the message spread through the building. What started as curiosity slowly turned into uneasiness. By the time the signal reached the higher departments, the mood shifted from confusion to concern. It wasn't long before the world's major security offices were informed. The signal wasn't a glitch. It wasn't natural. It was a transmission from something outside Earth. Hours passed, and the signal only grew stronger. Then the telescopes caught at something huge at the edge of the solar system. It was dark, metallic, and moving with a smoothness that no natural object ever could. One telescope caught its shape, then another, and soon dozens of observatories around the world confirmed it. A fleet. A real fleet. Strange ships, layered in a way Earth ships never were, stretching out like a floating city in space. No one could understand how something so massive had approached without being detected months earlier. It was moving quietly, without shining lights or leaving heat trails. But once it reached a certain distance, it no longer bothered to hide. The world froze. News stations flashed urgent banners. Social media exploded with fear and confusion. People stepped outside at night and stared at the sky, even though they couldn't see anything with their eyes. They just wanted to look. They just wanted to feel like they were part of whatever was coming. In homes, cafes, offices, and streets, conversations all carried the same question. Are they friendly? No one had an answer. In a mountain facility, hidden from the public eye, several experts gathered in a dim room. They weren't heroes. They weren't looking for fame. They were scientists, analysts, military planners, and communication specialists who had trained for years for a moment they hoped would never arrive. One older expert leaned forward, watching the distant images of the fleet. He spoke softly, almost in disbelief. "They're not here to explore," he said. "Look at the formation. Look how tight they're holding their positions." He wasn't wrong. The formation looked like a blockade. Thousands of ships arranged in precise lines, as if sealing off Earth's access to space. They moved in silence, without firing anything or sending any messages. But the way they spread across Earth's orbital path said everything. This wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. Or worse, a claim. Soon after, the Armada reached Earth's orbit. Their ships were massive, larger than anything Earth had ever imagined building. Some were shaped like stretched ovals, others like wide discs with glowing edges, and a few looked like floating towers. They didn't match anything in human records or any theoretical design. They weren't built for beauty. They looked like machines meant for one purpose: domination. World leaders scrambled to make sense of the situation. They held urgent calls, private meetings, and emergency gatherings. Every government wanted to send messages to the fleet, but no one knew what to say. What if a wrong word triggered an attack? What if silence made them look weak? The Armada continued to hover, motionless, ignoring all attempts at communication. Every transmission Earth sent received no reply. It was as if the invaders didn't care to answer. They were simply waiting. Over the next hours, Earth's fear grew. Airports shut down. Schools closed early. People stocked up on food and water, not because they were told to, but because fear guided them. News reporters struggled to stay calm as they delivered repetitive updates, often saying the same things in different words, because no new information arrived. The sense of helplessness hung in the air like a heavy blanket, but behind the scenes, not everyone was panicking. A group of analysts sat in a sealed room deep underground, studying every piece of information that came in. They replayed the footage of the Armada, zooming in, slowing down, comparing movement patterns. While the world reacted with fear, these people focused on details. And the details told a surprising story. One analyst, a quiet man with steady eyes, pointed at a section of the fleet. "Look at the power signatures," he said. "They're stable. Too stable. They're not preparing weapons. They're not adjusting for an attack. This formation is for blocking, not fighting." Another expert nodded. "They think we're no threat. They're not even bothering to point their heavy cannons toward us." That simple observation sparked the beginning of a theory the team was reluctant to speak aloud. The Armada didn't come expecting a fight. It came expecting compliance. They thought Earth was an easy target, primitive, unprepared. Weak. If the invaders had studied Earth, they had done it poorly. They underestimated humanity. They misread Earth's silence as weakness, not as caution. They mistook the absence of huge warships as proof that Earth had none. They assumed that humanity was alone, fractured, and powerless. Inside the control room, a sense of determination quietly replaced fear. The experts exchanged glances that carried the same unspoken message. The invaders made a mistake, but even with this realization, the pressure was immense. Earth had no chance in direct combat. The smallest ship in the Armada likely held more firepower than an entire human fleet combined. But strength wasn't everything. Strategy mattered. Understanding the enemy mattered. And most importantly, unity mattered. As evening fell across the planet, people watched the news with restless hearts. Cities glowed with lights as if the world was trying to make itself look alive and unbroken in the face of danger. Some cried quietly, some held their families close, and some simply stared at the screen, unable to process the reality of what was happening. In the underground facility, a junior assistant walked into the main room holding a folder. He hesitated near the door, unsure if he should interrupt. The lead expert noticed him and motioned him forward. Inside the folder was a new analysis. The invaders' movement had small delays, little hesitations, as if the ships were waiting for commands instead of acting independently. That meant the fleet was centralized. It followed one main command source. "If we can confuse that source," one expert murmured, "we can confuse the whole fleet." This idea hung in the air like a spark waiting for fuel, but there was still a long road ahead. Humanity didn't yet know how to protect itself. They didn't yet know how far the invaders would go. They didn't even know if there was time left to plan. Still, something had changed. The world's fear was beginning to mix with a new feeling. A tiny feeling. A fragile one. Hope. As the Armada floated silently above Earth, the planet below refused to collapse. Instead of running, some people stepped forward. Instead of hiding, some began trying to understand. Instead of falling apart, a handful of minds began building the foundation of what would become Earth's greatest defense, and far above them, in the cold darkness of space, the overconfident Armada waited, unaware that the small blue planet below it was not as helpless as it seemed. Earth was scared, yes, but it was also awake. And that changed everything. When the world learned about the alien Armada hovering above Earth, most people believed there was nothing humanity could do. The ships were too big, too advanced, too strange. They looked like giants made of metal and light. Every news report repeated the same idea. Earth had no real space force. Earth had no chance in direct combat. Earth could only hope for mercy. But deep beneath the surface, hidden under rocky mountains, a different fight was already beginning. In a high-security underground base, dozens of scientists and analysts gathered because the situation was far too big for any single country to handle. They were ordinary people in their everyday lives, men and women who drank too much coffee, worked too many late nights, and carried stress like a shadow. But at that moment, they were the closest thing Earth had to a shield. A tall, calm officer stepped inside the main briefing room. He placed a folder on the table, and everyone grew quiet. The room was filled with soft humming machines, blinking screens, and the low voices of operators monitoring the Armada's movements. The walls were lined with giant displays that showed live satellite feeds of the alien formation. Even though the images were only pictures, they still made everyone feel small. "They're not responding to any of our transmissions," the officer said, sliding the folder open. Not a single signal. No reply. No acknowledgement. Nothing. One scientist leaned back with a tired sigh. "They don't think they need to respond. They believe we can't do anything." Everyone knew he was right. The aliens had not fired a single shot, not because they were peaceful, but because they saw Earth as already defeated. To them, this was not a battle. It was a simple step in their mission, whatever that mission was. For a moment, the room was silent. Then another expert spoke in a low voice. "We can't fight them with force. They are too strong. But maybe strength isn't what we need right now." The others turned toward him. His words sounded uncertain, but also hopeful. "What do you mean?" Someone asked. He motioned toward the large screen showing the alien ships. "Look at their formation. Look at how rigid it is. How uniform. They move like a machine, not like independent minds thinking for themselves. That means they rely on a central command. And if they rely on a central command, that means they can be deceived." The idea seemed impossible at first. How could Earth deceive something so advanced? But slowly, people leaned in, listening, thinking, hoping. The expert continued, "We don't fight them. We confuse them. We make them unsure. If they think Earth is stronger than it is, if they believe we have technology equal to or greater than theirs, they might hesitate. They might retreat." A few people exchanged doubtful glances. It seemed far too risky. But then one woman quietly stood and walked toward a digital board. She picked up a stylus and wrote 2 words. Project Phantom. The room grew still. Most of the world had never heard the name, and most never would. It was a secret so well buried that even many governments didn't know about it. The idea had been created long ago in a hidden research division. It was a defense project built around illusions, holographic projections so detailed and so complex that they could appear on radar as solid objects. Fake fleets, fake bases, fake weapons. Not real, but real enough to fool sensors. The project had never been used because Earth never had a reason big enough to risk revealing it. Until now, the woman looked around the room. If they underestimate us, then we make them overestimate us. We show them something they can't understand, something large enough to force them to question every assumption they made about humanity. People nodded slowly. Someone whispered, "We show them a ghost fleet." With that whisper, the room came alive. People who had felt helpless minutes ago suddenly had purpose. They began planning, calculating, debating. Ideas bounced off walls like sparks leaping from fire. It didn't matter that the project was incomplete. It didn't matter that the phantom images weren't perfect. What mattered was time. Earth had very little of it. The next hours were tense. Operators typed commands so fast their fingers shook. Engineers worked in crowded stations, building the software needed to activate Project Phantom on a scale no one had ever tested. Some of them had tears in their eyes from exhaustion, but they didn't slow down. They COULDN single quotes T dot above them. The alien armada still waited silently, as if watching Earth's every move. The underground base coordinated with several hidden ground stations around the world. These stations were placed in deserts, mountains, and remote islands, long forgotten by the public, but now critical for the planet's survival. They were equipped with powerful transmitters capable of projecting the phantom signals into space. That the entire operation depended on perfect timing. One mistake, one wrong frequency, one moment of hesitation, and the illusion would fail. The aliens would see the truth, and Earth would have no second chance. Late into the night, the base lights dimmed slightly as electricity was redirected toward the projection systems. Fatigue hung on everyone like a heavy weight, but no one complained. The silence in the room was broken only by the soft tapping of keyboards and the low hum of machines preparing for activation. Then came the moment. The room dimmed further as a countdown paired on the central monitor. 10, 9, 8. Everyone held their breath. 7, 6, 5. Outside, the alien armada continued to stare at Earth with cold patience. 4, 3, 2. No one blinked. The systems activated. A burst of invisible energy traveled upward, breaking through the atmosphere, spreading outward. The air vibrated gently, like a storm rumbling far away. Radar pulses echoed across the sky. In the nothingness of space, lines of light began forming ghost ships. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. On Earth screens, something extraordinary appeared. A fleet, a massive fleet. Ships that didn't exist. Ships that humanity had never built. Ships that were only light and reflection, but looked completely real in alien sensors. The Phantom Fleet spread out in perfect formation. As if ready to defend Earth, it moved with discipline and order, mimicking the behavior of a highly trained military force. Inside the underground room, the team watched with a mixture of awe and fear. They knew what they were seeing wasn't real, but it still felt like witnessing a miracle. One analyst whispered, "If they believe this, we might actually survive." Now the real test began. The alien reaction. The armada shifted. Not much, but enough to show uncertainty. Some of the ships rotated slightly, recalculating. A ripple ran through their formation, like a silent gasp. The invaders had expected Earth to be weak, but suddenly they were facing the impossible. A fleet appearing out of nowhere. For the first time, the alien armada hesitated. In the underground base, people exchanged nervous glances. "Do you think they're buying it?" Someone asked. Another replied, "They have no reason to think it's fake." Minutes felt like hours as they watched, waiting for any sign of what the aliens would do next. On Earth's surface, people still didn't know about Project Phantom. They continued living in fear, unaware of the silent battle of wits happening deep underground. But maybe that was better. Maybe the world didn't need to know everything. Not yet, because hope was fragile, and hope needed protection. Inside the base, the team strengthened the illusion, adjusting the positions of the Phantom ships, making the fleet look even more powerful. The aliens scanned the images repeatedly, trying to understand how Earth had hidden such technology. They couldn't understand. And confusion was exactly what humanity needed. One expert smiled faintly, the first smile anyone in the room had seen all day. "They thought we were helpless," he said. "But they don't know us. Not at all." And in that small underground room, a feeling grew, not loud, not dramatic, but steady and warm. A feeling that rose from the hearts of people who refused to give up. Earth didn't win anything yet. The danger still surrounded the planet like a shadow made of metal. But something had changed. Something important. For the first time since the Armada arrived, the invaders weren't the only ones with control. Earth was fighting back, not with weapons, but with intelligence, courage, and unity. And sometimes that was enough to change the direction of a story. Sometimes it was enough to rewrite destiny. The moment Earth's Phantom Fleet appeared in orbit, everything changed. For hours the alien armada had watched Earth with complete confidence, as if they were a group of giants staring down at a small village. But now, the sky around the planet looked different. It was filled with shapes, hundreds of glowing outlines, thousands of reflections, all lined up in neat, disciplined formations. The aliens didn't know those ships weren't real. They didn't know the images were just light and data created by Project Phantom. All they saw was a powerful fleet rising from behind Earth, spreading across the darkness like a wave of protective shields in the underground base. The people who spent the entire night working waited for the alien reaction. Everyone stared at the monitors with tense eyes. The screens showed the alien ships drifting slightly off their original path, adjusting their positions in ways no one had seen before. This was the moment everyone feared and hoped for at the same time. Hope, because if the aliens believed the fleet was real, Earth had a chance. Fear, because if they realized it wasn't real, the illusion would collapse and the Armada might attack immediately. One of the analysts leaned forward so close to his monitor that his breath fogged the screen. He whispered, "Come on. Fall for it. Just fall for it." His voice shook even though he tried to keep calm. Far above Earth, one of the alien ships moved closer to the Phantom Fleet, scanning it with beams of thin blue light. Those beams passed straight through the fake ships. But the projection software responded fast, creating false signals that bounced back toward the alien scanners. To the alien sensors, it looked like the beams hit real metal, solid, heavy, armed. Inside the base, the lead expert tapped several keys and adjusted the illusion's response timing. "Make it look real on every level," he said. "If they see even one glitch, the whole world could fall apart." The technicians nodded quickly. Their fingers flew across keyboards, fine-tuning the reflections, adjusting the brightness of the Phantom ships, changing how they moved around Earth. They had to make the fleet look confident and prepared, but not overly aggressive. Too much aggression could be seen as a threat. Too little could be seen as weakness. It was like performing a dance in the dark. One wrong step and it could all end. The alien commanders watched the Phantom Fleet with growing confusion. Their formation had been perfect earlier, but now cracks were showing. A few ships drifted slightly out of sync. A few others rotated slowly, as if receiving new instructions. There were no loud explosions or dramatic lights, just tiny movements that revealed something important. The aliens were uncertain. In the underground base, someone breathed out shakily. "They're hesitating," she said. "Look, just look." They didn't expect this. They thought we were nothing. And she was right. The aliens had expected Earth to surrender immediately. They expected fear, silence, weakness. Instead, a fleet appeared in front of them, large, enough to make even an experienced commander stop and think. Earth had no real fleet like that. Of course, but the aliens didn't know that. And fear of the unknown was stronger than fear of anything familiar. After several minutes, one of the alien ships separated from the main group. It moved slowly toward the Phantom Fleet, scanning everything. Its lights pulsed like a heartbeat. The underground base watched every second of its movement. An engineer with tired eyes whispered, "If they try to fire at one of the illusions, we're done. The beam will just pass through it." Everyone knew he was right, but something surprising happened. Instead of firing, the alien ship stopped at a distance and began transmitting a new type of scan. The scan circled around the Phantom Fleet, analyzing angles and surface textures. Project Phantom struggled to keep up. It had never been pushed to this limit before. The software heated up, fans roared like engines. and several warning symbols flashed across the monitors. A technician shouted, "We're reaching overload." But the team didn't panic. They reacted together, switching off unnecessary systems, redirecting power, increasing the illusion resolution in real time. Sparks flew from one of the consoles as a small circuit overloaded. The illusion held. Still, the alien ship did not attack. Instead, it pulled back slowly, returning to the formation like a messenger carrying news. Earth was not as weak as they expected. In the streets above ground, the situation was very different. The public still didn't know about the Phantom Fleet. All they knew was that the alien armada remained in orbit. People followed every tiny update the news channels gave. Some watched with tearful eyes. Others tried to act normal, pretending the world wasn't changing around them. A mother sat with her young son in a living room, lit only by the TV. The boy asked, "Mom, are they going to hurt us?" She took a shaky breath before replying, "There are people working to protect us. You might not see them, but they're there. They're doing everything they can." She was right, even though she didn't know the details. Deep underground, the team monitoring Project Phantom began noticing a pattern. The alien fleet was shifting, not in preparation for attack, but in a kind of cautious retreat. They weren't leaving Earth's orbit yet, but they were pulling their frontline ships backward, creating more distance between themselves, and the Phantom Fleet. An expert smiled for the first time in 2 days. "They think we have something powerful. They're scared to strike first." That reaction mattered. Fear made enemies careful. Fear kept them from making bold moves. And fear gave Earth more time. After hours of silence, the aliens finally made their first direct move. Several smaller ships separated from the armada. They weren't warships. They looked like scouts, smaller and faster, designed for gathering information. The scouts flew toward Earth with slow, cautious movements. They scanned everything below, the oceans, the continents, the fake fleet, even the moon's surface. But every time they got too close to a phantom ship, the humans adjusted the projection to respond like a real vessel would. Lights flickered at the right moments. Shadows shifted correctly. Radar signals bounced back with perfect timing. The scouts circled the Phantom Fleet, scanning, analyzing, measuring. The underground team watched with clenched teeth. "If they figure out it's fake," one man said, "that'll be the last moment we see Earth peaceful." But the minutes passed, and the alien scouts continued scanning without attacking. They didn't fire. They didn't transmit warnings. They didn't even show signs of preparing weapons. Instead, they moved with a strange caution, almost like fear disguised as curiosity. After a long time, the scouts drifted back toward the main fleet. Their lights dimmed as they rejoined the formation, and something incredible happened. The entire armada shifted backward, just slightly, but enough for everyone watching to understand the meaning behind the movement. The aliens were stepping back. In the underground base, the tension broke for a moment. People leaned back in their chairs, exhaling deeply, as if they had been holding their breath since the fleet first appeared. A few people even allowed themselves quiet smiles. The lead expert stood and looked around the room. "This is just the first clash," he said. "A silent one, but important. We made them doubt themselves. That gives us time." He didn't say the other truth: time to prepare for whatever happens next. Above Earth, the Phantom Fleet continued holding its perfect formation, glowing faintly like a curtain of stars. The alien armada watched from a distance, cautious and unsteady. Earth had shown something unexpected. Not might, but cleverness. Not weapons, but illusion. Not destruction, but preparation. And for the first time since the aliens arrived, the balance between invader and defender began to tilt. Even if only a little. Earth's first clash with the armada wasn't loud or violent. There were no explosions, no dramatic attacks. But it was a victory, a quiet one, but still a victory. A victory of intelligence over arrogance, not a victory of unity over fear. Ah, victory that marked the beginning of a much larger battle. The alien armada had expected Earth to tremble, but instead, they found themselves staring at a massive fleet that came out of nowhere. Their sensors picked it up, their scanners confirmed it, and their commanders could not explain it. The sight of so many human-looking ships confused them deeply. It was as if Earth had been hiding advanced technology for decades. But the more the aliens watched, the more uneasy they became. Something about the Phantom Fleet didn't behave the way they expected. It moved in perfect formation, too perfect. Every ship responded with identical timing, identical angles, identical patterns. Real fleets, even highly trained ones, always had small differences. Humans, after all, were unpredictable creatures. Even machines made by humans had their imperfections. The alien commanders began to notice these details, and that frightened the people working in the underground base. Because they noticed the aliens noticing, the lead expert stood in front of a screen showing the alien ship positions. He ran a hand through his hair and said quietly, "They're testing the pattern. They're looking for flaws." Everyone around him felt their stomach tighten. Project Phantom had fooled the aliens at first because the Armada expected Earth to be weak. When you think someone is weak, you don't look too closely at their strengths. But curiosity was now replacing arrogance. And curiosity could ruin everything. An officer pointed at a blinking marker on the map. "Here, that ship has moved 3 times in the last 20 minutes. They're circling the fleet again, but at different distances. They're measuring the reaction time." Another person added, "Look at this one. It's performing a long-range scan, deeper than before." A young technician, barely in his 20s, let out a shaky breath. "If they find even one mistake, they'll understand the whole fleet is fake." Everyone knew he was right. Inside the underground base, tension settled like cold fog. Engineers worked faster, adjusting the Phantom ship's movements by tiny variations to make them look more human. They changed the way the ships tilted. They altered the delays between responses. They even added small, harmless imperfections to the way light reflected off the illusions. It was like trying to paint dust, particles on a glass window, tiny details, but details that mattered. Meanwhile, far above the world, the alien commanders gathered inside their flagship. They stared at the images of Earth's Phantom Fleet with confusion heavy in the air. The aliens had come expecting victory. Instead, they found a mystery. Their leader, a tall figure with calm but suspicious eyes, paced slowly in front of a massive display. One of the alien officers said, "This fleet does not match recorded human abilities." Another replied, "We have scanned every signal, but none of them reveal how these ships were built. Their designs are unfamiliar. Their energy signatures are inconsistent." The leader stopped walking. He had studied dozens of civilizations, defeated many planets, watched hundreds of species fall with little effort. Yet something about Earth bothered him. Something felt wrong. He stared at the Phantom Fleet again. "These ships appeared too quickly," he said, "and no civilization hides thousands of warships without leaving traces." His officers looked at each other, but said nothing. The silence in their meeting room revealed something important. They were confused, but also worried. On Earth, the underground team continued their work. Screens flickered as the system processed adjustments. Sweat rolled down foreheads. People drank cold coffee without tasting it. Their entire focus remained on protecting the illusion. Hours passed, and then something happened that made everyone in the base freeze. One alien ship fired. It wasn't a full attack. It was a small, precise beam, thin, delicate, almost gentle, aimed at one of the Phantom ships. A test shot. A probe. A question. A beam hit the phantom ship. The illusion flickered. It was less than a second, barely noticeable. But to the people underground, that tiny flicker felt like lightning striking their hearts. They saw it clearly, and they knew the aliens might have seen it too. A technician gasped. Did they catch that? Fix it, the lead expert shouted. Patch the response. Redirect all power to that sector. The team rushed into action. One person typed commands so fast their fingers trembled. Another adjusted the projection angles. 2 engineers manually rewired a control panel. Sparks flying dangerously close to their hands. The flicker stopped. The phantom ship stabilized again, responding with perfect timing. But in the sky, the alien ship pulled back slowly, as if deep in thought. It returned to the formation and began communicating with the flagship inside the alien command room. The officers analyzed the moment. That reaction was delayed, one of them said. Too delayed for a real vessel. Another added, it looked like interference. The leader stepped closer to the screen, eyes narrow. Are these ships fake? No one answered, but the question hung in the air like smoke. On Earth, the underground team waited anxiously, watching the alien response. Minutes passed. Nothing. The aliens did not attack. They did not fire again. They did not move forward. Instead, they drifted backward. Only a little, but enough to show they weren't certain of what they saw. The test shot wasn't enough to expose the truth. The aliens still didn't know what Earth had created. They're unsure, the lead expert said. That means we still have a chance. But they won't stay confused forever. He was right. The aliens wouldn't leave things unanswered. They needed clarity. And clarity would come with more tests. Possibly harsher tests. Possibly real attacks. The team began adding depth to the illusion. They simulated engine heat. They simulated low-grade radio chatter. They simulated docking motions between phantom ships. Anything that could make the fleet look alive. While all this happened, the aliens prepared another plan. This time, they would send not 1 ship, but 3. 3 scout vessels left the formation and glided toward the phantom fleet. They moved slowly, but with purpose. Their paths curved around the fake ships, examining different angles. They scanned for heat trails, metallic density, electrical pulses, anything real. Inside the underground base, alarms flashed. They're scanning deeper than before. Someone said, we need to fake internal heat signatures. Another replied, we don't have time for that. A young researcher shouted. But somehow, the team found a way. They patched old prototype functions into the system. They layered illusions on top of illusions. They created heat-like reflections using energy pulses. They simulated ship engines running low idle. It worked. The scout ships kept circling, but didn't fire this time. They finished their scans and drifted back to the alien armada. The alien leader again analyzed the data. It looks real, one officer said. But too perfect, another added. The leader frowned. We must not attack until we understand. And that hesitation, just that one small moment of caution, kept Earth safe. Back underground, everyone finally allowed themselves a tiny break. Not celebration, just relief. Shoulders relaxed slightly. People leaned back. A few rubbed their faces tiredly. Someone whispered, we survived another test. But no one felt calm. They knew the Armada was learning, watching, questioning. And the worst part was simple. Illusions could not protect Earth forever. Eventually, the aliens would push harder. Eventually, they would look too close. Eventually, Project Phantom would reach its limit. Everyone felt the weight of that truth. The lead expert walked to the large window that looked into another part of the underground facility. Beyond the glass lay the core servers of Project Phantom machines, glowing with blue light, humming with energy, heated by constant use. "They won't stop," he murmured. "They'll keep testing us until they're sure. And when they're sure, everything changes." Outside, in the quiet darkness of space, the alien armada shifted once more. Not forward, not backward, just waiting to understand the truth, waiting for the next move. Earth waited too, holding its breath behind a curtain made of light, hoping the curtain didn't fall too soon. The world had changed so much in only a few days that people no longer understood what normal meant. Life had stopped. Cities stayed quiet. Highways were empty. Nobody was thinking about school, office work, or weekend plans. Every thought, every conversation, every restless night came down to one thing. The alien armada still surrounded Earth, and no one knew what would happen next. Most people only knew what the news told them. They didn't see the hidden work happening behind closed doors, in small control rooms, inside deep underground bunkers. They didn't know what Earth was secretly preparing, not powerful weapons, not giant machines, but something more surprising. Something the alien armada did not expect. Inside one of those hidden bases, a group of human specialists sat together, staring at a wall-sized screen. They were tired, hungry, and stressed, but they did not have the option to rest. Every minute mattered. Every decision would influence the future of the planet. Their focus was on the Phantom Fleet. Those were the illusionary ships that Earth had projected earlier. Fooling the alien armada into believing humanity had thousands of advanced warships ready to fight. The aliens were terrified because they couldn't understand how Earth hid such a force. But the truth was simple. The Phantom Fleet wasn't real. It was a massive trick built on science, light, and misdirection. The illusion had worked well so far, but now came the next challenge. The aliens were watching everything closely. Any mistake, even a small one, could expose the truth. And if that happened, Earth would be in danger. The team inside the control room knew they couldn't depend on illusions forever. The aliens were strong, organized, and highly trained. Their armada had hundreds of ships. Real combat would end badly for Earth, so the only option was to weaken the aliens without letting them know what Earth was doing. It was time for humans to strike back, but carefully. The idea was not to win through force. It was to win through smart thinking. Humans had always learned to survive by using their minds, and this situation was no different. They had studied the alien ships for days. They found patterns, weaknesses, and gaps. The aliens trusted their own technology too much. They assumed no young species, as they called humans, could understand their systems. That arrogance opened small windows of opportunity. Earth just needed to use those windows correctly. In a separate room, underground and shielded from scanning signals, a smaller group of specialists gathered around a holographic model of the alien ships. They were quiet as they discussed each detail. Every system, every antenna, every glowing panel mattered. They were planning operations that would not look aggressive, but still disrupt the aliens enough to create fear. They didn't want to destroy ships. They wanted to confuse the invaders even more. The first operation began silently. Small human drone, nothing like the giant Phantom Fleet Illusions, was launched from Earth. It moved through space without sending any signal, without glowing lights, without making any moves that could give it away. The aliens were too focused on the fake massive fleet to notice. One little drone. The drone reached one of the smaller alien ships. It scanned everything. It observed how the ship communicated with the rest of the armada. That ship was a communication relay, passing information between commanders. If Earth touched it, the aliens might think a hidden human unit attacked them. Earth didn't need to destroy it. They just needed a gentle push. The drone released a pulse, harmless, but enough to confuse the relay system. It was like unplugging a cable for 1 second. Just 1 second. Then everything returned to normal. But that 1-second glitch spread across the alien network dot inside the alien armada. Confusion grew. A few officers wondered if the Phantom Fleet had hacked them. Others believed that Earth was using technology beyond their understanding. The alien commander could not admit weakness, so he ordered silence. He pretended nothing was wrong, but everyone noticed something felt off. That was exactly what Earth needed. The next operation was slightly bigger. This time, a small human satellite was used to reflect signals off nearby space debris. These signals created false readings on the alien sensors. Their screens showed massive structures moving behind the Phantom Fleet, as if another hidden force was preparing to join the fight. The aliens became anxious. They didn't want to face one Phantom Fleet, let alone two. For humans, this was a victory. Not a loud or explosive victory, just a quiet one. Quiet victories were the only kind Earth could afford. Meanwhile, back on Earth's surface, people were trying to stay calm. Families stayed indoors. Children asked questions adults couldn't answer. Streets stayed dark at night to avoid drawing attention. Even the sky felt strange, because everyone knew something dangerous hovered beyond it. In the control room, the team knew fear was spreading on both sides, on Earth and inside the alien armada. But fear could be used. Fear could change decisions. The third operation was the most important one. It involved no drones, no satellites, no illusions. Just observation. The team had discovered something unique. The aliens followed strict patterns. Their ships never changed formation unless ordered. Their movement was predictable. If Earth showed unexpected action, the aliens would assume something powerful forced them to react. The team planned to move the Phantom Fleet. Illusions in a strange and unpredictable way. Not forward, not backward, sideways, slowly, like a silent force shifting positions with purpose. When the aliens saw the movement, they didn't understand it. It didn't match any battle strategy they knew. Their sensors confirmed the entire massive human fleet was moving together. Precision, coordination, no errors. The alien commanders believed no illusion could move like that. They assumed only real ships could achieve such perfect alignment. Some alien officers wondered silently if Earth had been hiding its true power for generations. Others thought there must be a hidden command deep inside Earth that even the humans didn't know about. The more the aliens tried to study the Phantom Fleet, the more real it looked to them. This was exactly the reaction Earth wanted. The alien commander grew restless. He paced inside his command room, unable to understand how Earth, this simple blue planet, managed to prepare technologies that his race struggled to create. He believed Earth had allies from somewhere else, maybe from deeper space. The truth was simple. Humanity was just clever. The next step in Earth's counterattack was to target the aliens' confidence directly. No attack, no explosion, just pressure. Humans sent coded signals into space, knowing the aliens would intercept them. But those signals were meaningless. They were designed to look like strategic commands, to create the illusion of internal planning, to make the aliens believe Earth had a second level of communication beyond they already saw. The aliens reacted with panic. If humans had secret coded layers of strategy, they must be more advanced than they appeared. Everything was psychological. The aliens still had more firepower. They still had more ships. But they lacked one thing: certainty. Inside Earth's control room, the specialists realized something important. They didn't need to beat the aliens in battle. They just had to make them doubt themselves. Doubt was stronger than any weapon, and it worked. A strange quiet spread across the alien armada. Their ships stopped advancing. They stopped scanning aggressively. They stayed still, as if waiting for something to happen. They watched the Phantom Fleet with more fear than aggression. Earth had turned from prey into something unknown. This shift gave humans the courage to go further. They planned a final operation, one that would push the aliens to the point of retreat. The plan was simple. Make the Phantom Fleet look even more powerful, but in a gentle way. Not aggressive, just intimidating. They increased the size of some illusionary ships. They added silent lights. They extended the formation. The fleet now looked older, wiser, more experienced. Something ancient. The alien commander had seen enough. He believed he was facing a force with centuries of experience. Not a young planet. He believed Earth had allies he could not detect. He believed any battle would end with massive losses. He believed retreat was safer than war. Back in the control room, the team watched the alien armada slowly shift. Their ships began pulling back, one by one, line by line, formation breaking apart, reality unfolding exactly as they hoped. Humans didn't celebrate yet. They couldn't afford mistakes. They watched carefully. The alien armada continued retreating, leaving Earth's orbit quietly. The Phantom Fleet didn't move. The humans didn't send signals. The world held its breath. Finally, after long hours, the alien ships were no longer visible from Earth. Silence returned. People around the world slowly stepped outside. They stared at the sky as if seeing it for the first time. In the hidden control room, the specialists sat quietly, exhausted but relieved. They looked at each other, unsure whether to smile or cry. They had done it. Earth had struck back, not with weapons, but with intelligence. Not with force, but with strategy. Not with destruction, but with calm thinking. The planet was safe for now. But they all knew this wasn't the end. It was just the turning point. When the alien armada finally disappeared from Earth's sky, the world did not celebrate right away. People were unsure if they should trust what they were seeing. Families stood on rooftops, staring upward as if waiting for the ships to return. News channels kept repeating the same line. We are observing no hostile movement. Every person on the planet felt the same mixture of relief and fear. It was like taking a breath after being underwater for too long, but still not knowing if the waves would pull you back in. Inside the hidden control room, the team who had silently guided Earth through this crisis remained seated. Nobody jumped or shouted. Nobody clapped. They sat quietly, letting the moment sink in. They had used every bit of intelligence, creativity, and courage they had, and somehow it worked. The Phantom Fleet illusion stayed still as the alien ships drifted farther and farther away, shrinking into distant lights until they disappeared completely. One of the specialists leaned back, covering his face with his hands. He wasn't crying, but his body trembled from exhaustion. Another member rubbed his eyes, which felt like burning sand. Someone else simply stared at the blank screen with a soft smile, unable to believe Earth had made it out of this crisis without a single shot fired. Their leader spoke softly, almost whispering, "We wait. We don't turn anything off yet." Everyone nodded. Even if the alien armada looked like it had retreated, they couldn't assume it was over. The aliens might be regrouping. They might return with backup. They might be planning a different kind of strategy. Nobody knew. But Earth had learned one crucial truth during these days. Silence did not mean safety. Outside the underground base, the world moved slowly. Some people cried openly in the streets, overwhelmed with relief. Some hugged their loved ones tightly. Some simply stood still, trying to make sense of everything. A few people whispered prayers, thanking whoever they believed in. Others stared at the sky with suspicion, wondering if the aliens would come back in the night. Despite the confusion, there was one shared feeling everywhere. Humanity had survived something impossible, but inside the control room, the specialists were thinking far beyond survival. They knew this retreat had nothing to do with Earth's true military power. The planet's real fleet was tiny. If the Phantom Fleet illusion had failed even once, Earth would not have stood a chance. One of the younger members looked at the leader and said, "We won." "Right?" The leader didn't answer immediately. He took a slow breath and finally said, "We survived." Winning is something else. That sentence stayed in the air for a long moment. After monitoring space for hours and confirming, there were no returning signals. No hidden ships, no sudden movements. The team finally allowed themselves to stand and stretch. Their bodies were stiff like wood. Some went to drink water. Others leaned against the wall, eyes half closed. But nobody left the room. They didn't want to step outside into a world that thought everything was fixed. They knew something others didn't know. Earth had been saved by a trick. A brilliant trick, yes, but still a trick. And tricks only work once. The leader walked to the large window, overlooking the lower level of the base. He watched technicians turn off unused screens, organize equipment, and update logs. Even they looked exhausted. When he turned back to the team, he spoke in a steady voice. "We can't depend on illusions next time. The aliens will learn from this." Everyone understood. The Phantom Fleet had fooled them now, but next time the aliens might scan deeper, question more, or bring better technology. Next time Earth might not get a second chance. So the team decided to take the first step toward long-term protection. They began making a plan, not for war, but for preparation. They knew Earth needed real defenses, not projected ones. Real ships, real coordination, and real strategies that didn't rely on tricks. It wasn't about becoming aggressive. It was about being ready if the universe ever tested them again. While the specialists worked on their planning, Earth began to slowly come back to life. Schools reopened. Markets filled. Cars returned to the streets. People tried to return to their routines. But something had changed in everyone's mind. The sky didn't feel like empty blue anymore. It felt like a doorway, and nobody knew what was on the other side. Some people became curious. They wanted Earth to learn more about space. They wanted to understand who the aliens were, where they came from, and why they believed Earth was worth blockading. Others became cautious, saying Earth should stay hidden, quiet, and careful. But Earth had already been seen. Back underground, the team reviewed every detail of the alien ship's behavior. They replayed recordings frame by frame. They studied every pattern, how the aliens moved, how they communicated, how they reacted to fear. The team noticed something surprising. The alien armada had not acted like conquerors near the end. They acted like a group that suddenly doubted everything they thought. They knew the illusions had shaken their confidence so deeply that they chose to retreat rather than risk a battle with an unknown power. For the first time, the team wondered if the aliens were not as fearless as they had appeared. They were powerful, yes. Advanced, yes. But they were also cautious. They didn't want to lose. They didn't want to risk fighting an enemy they couldn't fully understand. This realization made the leader think deeply. "If they fear the unknown," he said, "then maybe we need to become unpredictable in ways they can't easily read." The others nodded. They understood. Strength wasn't always about weapons. Sometimes strength was about creating uncertainty, about making others think twice before pushing forward. A few hours later, new data arrived. It showed that the alien armada had not just moved away. They had jumped into deep space at extreme speed. This confirmed something important. They were not planning an immediate return. One of the specialists looked at the empty star map and whispered, "They're gone." Another replied, "For now." After a long silence, the leader finally said the words everyone had been waiting to hear. "Shut down the Phantom Fleet." The team worked carefully, like surgeons. One by one, the illusionary ships faded from the screens until nothing remained. The space around Earth became empty again. Honest, quiet, vulnerable. But Earth was not the same planet anymore. Something invisible had changed. People had learned that fear could be managed, that unity mattered, and that intelligence could be stronger than weapons. Weeks passed. Life improved. People smiled again. Children played outside. News anchors talked about hope and courage. The world slowly healed from the fear of the blockade, but the team in the underground base continued working silently every day. They knew Earth couldn't depend on luck forever. They designed new systems, new technologies, and new methods to protect the planet. Not illusions this time, real solutions. They believed humanity could rise to the challenge. And somewhere in deep space, beyond the reach of human telescopes, the alien armada traveled silently. They still whispered among themselves about the powerful force they thought Earth possessed. They wondered what they had faced. They questioned if they had underestimated a species far more capable than they. Assumed the truth was simple. Earth didn't win because of strength. Earth won because of the human mind, because of creativity, calm thinking, teamwork, and courage in a moment when fear could have taken over. As the story ends, Earth stands quietly under its blue sky, aware that the universe is larger and more mysterious than anyone imagined. The alien armada might return someday, armed with new knowledge. But Earth would be ready not with illusions, but with real preparation. And though the world faced a silent threat that shook its soul, humanity did what it had always done.